Hi everyone, and welcome to this new episode of Simply Said. Throughout our study of Paul's letter to the Ephesians, we've seen how he emphasizes a powerful message. In Jesus, we have become a new humanity. This isn't just about a personal transformation, it's about a shift in how we view ourselves and others, creating a community where believers are bound together as citizens of God's kingdom. Through Jesus' victory over sin and death and the powers of darkness, the barriers that once divided people, be they social, cultural, or spiritual, are broken down. In this kingdom, we are called to live differently. Paul tells us that the new humanity is not about pushing our own agenda or fighting for personal gain. Instead, it's about living with humility, serving one another, and placing others' needs above our own. In Ephesians 5:21, Paul gives a powerful directive. He says, "Submit to one another out of reverence for Christ." This idea of mutual submission is key to how we live out our faith in our relationships. It's not a passive instruction, it's an active call to love and honor each other as an act of worship to Jesus. Submitting to one another doesn't mean giving up our voice or our value. It's choosing to honor others, seeing them as more significant than ourselves, and showing the sacrificial love that Jesus showed us. Paul then begins to break down what this submission looks like in specific relationships, using the household code, which is familiar to the people of this time. In the Greco-Roman world, this code was used to reinforce hierarchy, where the man was the authority and others were expected to serve him. But speaking directly to those who were traditionally lower or inferior, Paul shows how the good news of Jesus can transform the way that the household functions. He affirms the dignity and the value of every family member, wives, children, even servants, under the authority of Christ. He does this in a radical way that respects each person's value and role within the family. Paul's first example of submission focuses on children and parents. And in Ephesians 6:1-3, he says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right." This commandment doesn't only apply to young children. In the Roman world, children were under their father's authority for their entire lives. But Paul's instruction includes a promise drawn from the Hebrew Scriptures. Honor your father and mother, so that it may go well with you, and that you may live long on the earth. For us today, this means showing respect and care for our parents, regardless of age. This teaching goes beyond simple obedience too. Paul reminds us that honoring our parents is a reflection of our very relationship with God. And when we honor those who first taught us about life, we reflect our love for Christ. And while in today's culture, young adults may gain independence earlier, honoring parents remains a lifelong calling. Now, when Paul addresses fathers, he doesn't focus on enforcing rules so much. Instead, he says, "Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord." And here Paul is encouraging parents to lead their children gently and wisely. The goal is not to dominate, but to guide with love, modeling what it means to live as citizens of the kingdom of heaven. See, parenting isn't about enforcing rules as much as it is about leading children into a relationship with Jesus, and by setting a godly example, showing children how to do life. This is why Paul warns against exasperating children. A child becomes discouraged or exasperated when they feel that their parents' expectations are unfair or impossible to meet. Instead of harsh authority, Paul is calling parents to model God's love and compassion, nurturing children in the instruction of the Lord with kindness and respect. Paul's teachings remind us that discipleship isn't just about classes or reading books. True discipleship happens in relationship, and it's taught through example. Just as Jesus lived with his disciples, showing them how to walk with God in everyday life, parents are called to demonstrate faith and right living to their children. This means that children learn how to do life by what they see in their parents, be that humility, kindness, integrity, love. All of these are learnt by watching. Paul's words here also encourage us to be intentional about the spiritual formation of those that we influence. Just as Jesus invited his followers to walk alongside him, we are to do the same with others in our lives, creating a safe space for them to learn and to grow. When Paul speaks about disciplining children, he's not talking so much about harsh punishment, but nurturing guidance. Proverbs 13:24 speaks of the rod in the context of love and instruction, guiding children on the right path. And throughout the Old Testament, the rod is a symbol of God's protection, his authority, and correction. This doesn't refer primarily to hitting as much as it does to a guiding presence that brings children back when they stray. Psalm 23's image of the rod and staff as symbols of comfort reminds us that God's discipline is rooted in care. The rod represents guidance, protection, and the steady hand of a shepherd leading his flock. In the same way, Paul is calling parents to guide their children with firmness and compassion, helping them grow into people who reflect God's love. Paul's teaching in Ephesians challenges us all, whether parents, children, or members of every faith community in Christ, to prioritize others above ourselves. This means serving, honoring, and loving each other as acts of worship. It's in these acts of mutual submission that we demonstrate what it means to be a new humanity in Christ. Here's some practical ways we can apply this in our daily lives. Firstly, model respect and kindness. See, children learn by watching, so we should model respect in our interactions. If we want our kids to value humility, we should show humility in our actions. Number 2, create clear, positive rhythms. Establishing routines can help children understand what's expected and give structure to the family's shared life. This can be really helpful in helping kids to work out where the walls are in life and why those walls exist. Third, encourage open communication. Allow children to share their thoughts, their ideas, and even their disagreements respectfully. Create a safe space for honest communication because it deepens trust. Number 4, spend time together in the everyday of life. Whether it's eating meals, helping with chores, sharing stories, spending quality time together, these are the best ways to disciple and to connect with children because it's in the everyday, the life that they have to live for the rest of their lives. So we can show it by being with them. Fifthly, show gratitude and affirmation. See, it's easy to point out mistakes, but Paul's emphasis on encouragement reminds us to build each other up, celebrating successes, however small, and these things can help strengthen family bonds.